Hi everyone, I'm David. Welcome to today's class. What makes a movie great? Is it the story, the acting, or the way the movie is filmed? Some people may say it's a matter of personal taste. Yet, at the same time, there are movies that are commonly regarded as masterpieces. To better understand what makes a movie truly great, we may want to look at the academic discipline of film studies. Today's lesson has 3 parts. Part 1 looks at the filmmaking technique. Part 2 examines feeling and emotional resonance. Part 3 looks at social impact. While films all tell a story, there are also more than just characters, dialogue, and plot. A director needs to use the camera to physically express mood and emotion. Without good technique and direction to make the film come to life, even a great story can end up a mediocre movie. Films often try to enhance their visual impact with special effects. Special effects are visual tricks used to simulate events in a story. Throughout the history of film, directors have relied on visual effects to engage audiences and pull them deeper into the film. There are many forms of special effects. Physical effects are visual effects that are produced without computers. We often see physical effects used in action movies, especially during shootout scenes or dramatic fights. For example, when filming a fight scene, the room the scene takes place in may be built with windows that shatter easily. This allows actors to throw each other through the windows without getting hurt, and also increasing the fight's intensity. Prosthetic makeup is another category of physical effects. Oftentimes, it is used to create dramatic cosmetic effects, such as monster or alien-like features. It can also be used to create fake injuries, such as missing limbs. It may also be used in a more subtle way, as we can see in this photo of Heath Ledger's prosthetics from the Batman movie. Perhaps the most recognized form of special effects today, though, is computer-generated imagery, or CGI. As the name implies, these are special effects that are created with a computer, usually after the film is finished. CGI has become popular because it is much cheaper than physical effects to create scenes, explosions, characters, and objects. Of course, the easy availability of CGI means that films can over-rely on it. Our Dongni course says that many movies these days are filled with fast-moving special effects, explicit violence, and lots of sex. When movies use CGI for every effect, they can look unrealistic or cheap. Compare this CGI dinosaur with this model dinosaur. Which one looks better? However, other times, CGI is an important way to bring a movie to life and can even set the standard for future movies. An example of legendary CGI can be found in the movie The Matrix. The film helped popularize a special effect called bullet time, where characters would move slowly while the camera would move at normal speed. Bullet time was a jaw-dropping special effect for its time, exceeding expectations for action scenes. It was quickly copied by other films, television shows, video games, and even TV commercials. And though The Matrix was made in 1999, the effect remains popular in action movies today. It really raised the bar for action movies. Another important factor in determining what makes a good movie is its plot. In order to capture audiences' attention, a film needs to have an interesting story with memorable characters. Even if a movie has great special effects, without an engaging story, it will probably be pretty forgettable. A good character can be many things. Perhaps they're heroic, or troubled, or hilarious. But all characters need to be believable. After all, stories are about people, and the more audiences identify with characters, the more likely they will relate to the film. Some people identify with antiheroes. An antihero is a character in a movie who lacks traditional heroic qualities like idealism, morality, or even courage, while also doing certain bad things. And if they do the right things, it may not always be for the right reasons. We can probably say an antihero is like a bad boy archetype. Jack Sparrow from Pirates of the Caribbean is a good example of an antihero. While he occasionally does the right thing, he also lies, cheats, and sometimes runs away from conflict. It may be this ambiguity of good and bad qualities that makes him more interesting and popular than some other traditionally good characters in the movie. We may identify with antiheroes because their moral complexity mirrors our own. Nobody's perfect. Antiheroes are flawed characters who are still learning and growing, like us. Their behavior can surprise us when they do something good, and disappoint us when they behave badly. We want to see them mature, but empathize with their shortcomings. While a traditional hero may inspire us to be better, they may seem too perfect to really relate to. Another relatable kind of character is the underdog. An underdog is someone who has little chance of succeeding, be it in a contest, a fight, or life in general. In films, an underdog story usually involves a disadvantaged but likable person or people who succeed despite all the odds being against them. People tend to like underdog stories because they like to see good people overcome challenges or obstacles. As a result, underdog stories have often made for popular films. For example, the movie Rocky is about a kind but working-class boxer who fights in small clubs, but eventually gets a chance at the heavyweight championship. Another classic underdog story is the movie Forrest Gump. The film is about the life of a slow-witted but kind man who is born poor and disabled, but overcomes these obstacles to become wealthy and married to the woman of his dreams. The film was massively successful, generating $677.9 million and winning 6 Oscars. Like the characters in these movies, few of us are born incredibly privileged, but we all have dreams. To see someone achieve their dreams despite the odds makes us feel that on some level we can achieve our dreams too. So it's easy for audiences to empathize with the story of an underdog. Equally important to memorable, believable characters is the construction of a good story. As our Dongni course says, some of the best movies took place in a single location, such as on a lifeboat or a jury room. For example, the James Franco movie 127 Hours almost entirely took place with the actor trapped under a rock. That's not to say all good movies need to take place in one location, but a strong storyline needs to get audiences invested in what happens to a movie's characters. How do they develop? What problems do they need to solve? How are they changed by the events of the plot? And how is it done in a fresh and surprising way? Consider romance movies. The classic formula for both romantic comedies and dramas is that a boy meets a girl, then he loses the girl, then he wins the girl back. The boy may even be an underdog chasing after the girl of his dreams. Can you picture this kind of movie? But while this formula has a happy ending, it has also been done so often that it has become predictable or cliched. However, the movie 500 Days of Summer took this traditional plot formula and made it fresh. In the movie, a likable underdog wins over the girl of his dreams and then loses her. But as he tries to get her back, he realizes that his dreams were just unrealistic expectations. He wanted her to be someone she wasn't, while ignoring who she really was. In the end, he still finds love, but with someone who he doesn't idealize so much. Another vital element in bringing a story to life is good direction. Through the camera work, choice of shot, and telling actors how to behave, the director gives a movie its pacing, mood, and style. For example, the director Wes Anderson often uses still, symmetrical shots filled with pattern and color. It gives his movies a distinct feeling, much like living in a picture book. However, such a technique would not work well with a horror movie, where the audience needs to feel suspense and fear. In the movie Psycho, the director Alfred Hitchcock used 78 different angles and 52 cuts between shots to show a scene of a woman getting stabbed in the shower. The rapid cuts between the shots of the knife, the woman being stabbed, and the water created a sense of intensity and confusion. As Hitchcock later said, his main satisfaction with Psycho was that the film had an effect on the audiences. He said he didn't care about the subject matter or the acting, but he believed that the photography and the soundtrack and all the technical ingredients is what made the audience scream. Of course, in spite of technique, a movie's greatness doesn't always equal success. Audiences' tastes can often have a large impact on how a film is perceived. Perhaps what makes a movie truly great is the audience's reaction to it. Since popularity often equals financial success, many movie producers would probably say so. Consider the historical epic genre in China. In 2002, Yimou Zhang directed Hero to much critical praise and box office success. In fact, the film was the highest-grossing motion picture in Chinese film history and was nominated for Best Foreign Language Film at the Oscars. 2 years later, Zhang had another success with The House of Flying Daggers, which made $92 million on a $12 million budget. But in 2016, Zhang's film Great Wall did not perform well, even though it contained the same elements as his previous movies. It was criticized heavily on Douban and internationally, and was not nearly as commercially successful as his earlier works. Perhaps even a great director can lose his audience if his movies become too predictable. Having solid direction, meaningful characters, and an engaging story are all essential to make a good movie. But perhaps what defines a truly great movie is whether it goes beyond our expectations to surprise us, move us, or cause us to think. Because most movies rely on a formula, it is often easy to predict what's going to happen. For example, The Avengers are hugely successful and entertaining movies, but the audience probably knows the story before they even see the movie. Most likely, a villain will threaten the Earth, the Avengers will oppose them, and after overcoming obstacles, they will beat the bad guy and save the day. But great directors understand that plots can be predictable and attempt to subvert its audience's expectations about how the story will end. For example, in The Sixth Sense, a psychologist attempts to help a young boy who can see dead people. The ghosts he sees need to resolve a personal problem before they can leave the Earth. Throughout the movie, the doctor encourages the boy to get over his fear and help the ghosts who visit him. Only in the end, it turns out that the doctor has been dead the entire time and hasn't realized it. And his unresolved issues are what's keeping him on Earth. This is known as a twist ending. Rather than simply having the doctor help the boy ends up helping the doctor too. Another example of subversion happens in the movie Mulholland Drive. The first half of the movie begins with a rather formulaic mystery about a woman who loses her memory and then finds a stranger to help her try to remember who she is. Then, halfway through the movie, the script changes completely. All the characters in the first half of the movie now occupy different roles. One is left wondering what is real and what was a dream. This is much different from typical mystery movies, which usually end with a big revelation that explains the reason for the mystery. For example, in most murder mysteries, we usually end up knowing who the murderer is and why they committed their crime. But Mulholland Drive subverts our expectation for a simple ending. Rather, it challenges us, forcing us to revisit the film and try to pick up clues for what the story is about. But even a formulaic movie can be great if it's emotionally resonant. Emotional resonance can mean how we empathize with a film's characters, or how moved we are by a film's story. For example, the movie Titanic told a timeless story of two people who fall in love only to have one of them die. And yet, the film had such an emotional impact that it is still one of the highest grossing films of all time. Another emotionally resonant film was Black Swan, a movie about a mentally unstable ballerina who develops schizophrenia in the lead-up to a production of the ballet Swan Lake. At the end of the movie, the character suffers a complete psychotic break and sees herself grow wings, turning into a swan. It's said that as the main character gets crazier, the audience experiences her same schizophrenia. Other times, a movie's greatness is due to the themes it makes us think about. The Shawshank Redemption is about a man sentenced to life in prison for a crime he didn't commit, but eventually breaks free. The film grapples with themes such as the unfairness of life, the importance of perseverance, and the importance of staying strong in the face of injustice. More than the performances, it is the film's themes that make it a classic. We could argue that usually a film is an intimate experience between the viewer and the movie itself. But every once in a while, a film will have a much larger social impact. Sometimes it may change perceptions or even prompt people to take action that changes society or even the world. Consider the documentary film Super Size Me. In an attempt to demonstrate how fast food damages our bodies, the filmmaker only ate McDonald's supersize items for an entire month. When his experiment was over, he had gained 25 pounds, his cholesterol levels had risen dramatically, and his doctor told him he had the liver of an alcoholic. The film prompted an intense debate about fast food in the media, from how it impacts our health to how it's marketed to children. Within several weeks of the film's release, McDonald's announced that it was going to remove its supersize option and introduce healthier items on its menu. The South Korean film The Crucible is an example of how films can even change the law. The movie depicted sexual abuse of disabled students. In South Korea, the government had often been criticized for ignoring abuse cases and giving lenient sentences to those convicted of a crime. Based on a true case, The Crucible shed light on this, prompting national outrage over how abuse cases were handled. As a result, the government passed a law, named after the film, allowing for heavier punishments for sexual offenders, including the potential life imprisonment. In addition, the case the movie was based on was reopened, giving the victims another chance for justice. So perhaps what makes a movie truly great is its impact. Through special effects and direction, a film's cinematic impact can change how future movies are made. Through a film's cultural impact, it can change how people see the world. And through its personal impact, a movie can help us process the life we're living. Or perhaps it's something simpler. As the former film critic of The Guardian, Derek Malcolm, said, "A great movie is any movie a person could not bear the thought of never seeing again." All right, that's it for today's lesson. Let's have a quick review. In the first part, we examined several filmmaking techniques. Then, in the second part, we talked about feeling and emotional resonance. Lastly, we discussed the possible social impact films may have. I really enjoy movies, so I found this lesson really fun. I hope you did too. See you next time. Bye-bye.